MODO. Morsels.
In the previous morsel, we looked at colouring particles with a procedural texture. This begs the obvious question, can I do the same thing with an image map texture? Let's see what can be done. I do, however, recommend watching the previous morsel, which lays a lot of the groundwork for this one. The setup is much the same. I have a static particle generator generating a slab of 200 by 200 particles. The source emitter now has a single pulse on frame 2, which creates a corresponding slab of zero velocity dynamic particles. The replicator will place a cube mesh at every particle position. Finally, I've added a turbulence force to blow the particles about, and if we run the simulation and play it back, you can see them swishing around. As previously, we will add a particle operator to the particle system and set this to the new type. Add the read-only position and colour particle features. We will use the latter to capture the texture colour as the particles are created. As in the last morsel, our tools of choice will be the combination of fall-off probe and texture fall-off. The problem is that the fall-off probe only outputs one value, and for a colour we really need a red, green and blue value. This suggests that we will need 3 fall-off probes, one for each colour channel. Duplicate the fall-off probe a couple of times and drag in its channels. Next, separate the colour particle feature and feed the fall-off results into it. Multi-select the fall-off position channels and shift drag to connect to the particle operator. We will need a texture fall-off for each of the probes. Add one and then create another 2 copies and connect them to the fall-off probes. Finally, we will need an image map. Add one, then instance it a couple of times using the texture specific option, then connect them to the texture fall-off. The crucial step is that we want to separate the red, green and blue components for each of the probes. Select a texture layer and scroll down to the bottom. Here you will find the swizzling option. What the heck is a swizzle? In computer graphics, swizzling refers to selecting or permuting the elements of a vector. In this case, we can select which of the colour components we are interested in. For the red probe, we will select the red component. For the green probe, the green component, and, well, you get the idea. Select the shared texture locator and change its projection type to planar in the Y direction. Here is an image I loaded earlier. Drag this into the schematic and plug it into the textures. The last step is to get the colours into the shading system. Add a constant layer into the shading tree and drag it into the schematic. Like with the procedural texture in the last morsel, we will use a particle sampler to get hold of the particle's colour. Feed that into the constant texture and run the simulation. Bring up the preview render and gasp in amazement at the particle's newfound colours. OK, it's not quite perfect. The image is flipped. We can fix it by changing the Z size in the texture locator to -1, which will mirror the Z direction. Also, there are some rogue colours at the edge because the particles are right at the edge of the texture and the sample wraps around. The fix for this is to change the projection parameters horizontal and vertical repeat to edge. This clamps the sample points and prevents the wraparound.